I can tell by the smiling faces that this was a rich time in rooms. So always when we come back from rooms, we don't do reports from rooms, but we do want to distill the essence of an insight or a discovery. So anybody ready to share an insight, a discovery from the conversation, please?
So there was two things inside of this. One is that each has different kind of timing, and to make space for each other's timing. The second thing was in each, in a way, story, there was an interconnection of qualities, actions, and accumulation of where we are now. And I found it very healing to listen to and be a part of how we tell each other our stories.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you for that, Beth. So, yes, we each have a different timing and speed. We also would each be facilitated by different context and ecology in a different way. Like in an ideal world, this is not something I do on Zoom. We do this on a hike, journey, going up a trail, and we huddle together, and there is a bit of a conversation, and then we go on a meditative walk for 10-15 minutes, and then we regather and see what we discovered, and that may be not 10-15 minutes, but an hour later. So speed and timing and ecology can all be played with. Thank you. Please, Janice.
Yeah, it was a great process. I mean, even if it was short, I mean, and really going back to what you took us through, Aviv, because when I went inside, what I realized was my soul, there was something that lit up my soul about going back and really spending time to identify those natural qualities. It felt like a sacred process of honoring them, upholding them in oneself, because life is challenging and, it has a lot of exigencies and ups and downs. And even despite that, the insight for me was realizing that all the qualities I had put down, how in some way, despite those separation events and traumas along the way, somehow those qualities have still managed to have a life in me, to find expression. And that was really, there was such a feeling of, the soul wasn't going to give up that easily because there was a trauma or a separation event. It was like, those things still have a life, even if they're not maybe upfront in oneself, or at different times they may be upfront and other times they retreat, but they're still very much there. And so I was really, I was caught by how many of those qualities have found expression throughout my life, despite the difficulties of finding a way to express them or accepting them myself, regardless of what others might think or feel. So that was my experience.
Thank you. Janice, thank you. So a few things, stay with me here for a moment. And let's bring Kyriaki as I still just staying with what you offer there. First is the insight, the realization. You're absolutely right. The soul is whole, is undamaged. And those qualities, they may not get a chance to fully express themselves, but they're always there as a latent potency in your nature. And given the circumstance, they come into full bloom. And when we can have an experience or an ecology or a conversation where more of those natures come into the foreground and get expressed, it can experience, it can be a profound healing experience. Because part of what we are describing is, in actuality, energy potential that has a particular nature that got frozen in time. So when you release the more of that potential into your process formation, orchestration of today, not only is there a profound healing in that, there is a tremendous release of creative energy, creative potential. Just so many of those natures, they've been socialized out of us by circumstance, by experience, by conditions, and so on and so forth. And it also gives me an opportunity to say two other things, which is, so on the run-up to today, as I reflected on the content of chapter 2, I realized we were going to do what we have been doing, rather than spend a lot of head time about the ghost. And the reason I wanted to do so was, my concern was, number one, I didn't want us to be just in the head talking about the ghost. Number two, anytime you give a new tool or a new insight that, like the ghost, the risk is people could use that to pathologize themselves and create an alibi. Oh, well, that's why I've experienced what I experienced. I didn't want to go there. So, but because of that, today's event is not going to go into the fine details of understandings of the mechanics of separation events and how the ghost work and the differentiation between a person's psychology to the soul psychology, which express itself in the ghost. These are not one and the same. So given that we're not covering that today, we decided to, just in the last 24 hours, that we will do a bonus event. You're all welcome to join Monday, if you're available and free. Monday at, when did we decide to do that, Kyriaki?
11:30
Eastern. 11th,
a.m.
11th,
EDT, Eastern.
11:30 Eastern. You'll receive a thank you email after today. And actually, the email will go to everybody in the Portals Network. All you need to do is please send me the link, and we'll have you join us for a 90 minutes, maybe up to 2 hours recording on Monday, where we will actually be more in head time, talking about the content we're not getting to today. So I just wanted to capture that. Thank you, Janice. Please, Kyriaki, share an insight from your conversation in the room, and let's have Daniel brought into the spotlighted area as well, please.
Yes, one of the things that I realized is that all four of us felt the natural joy to meet each other and to speak about our qualities. Also, in all four of us, there was a curiosity about the universe, about a higher teleology, higher purpose, we could say, and a wondering and awe about it. And I was thinking that these two things, the natural joy that we each feel when we focus on our qualities and we speak about them and we share them, and also this reverence and about the mysteries of the universe, let's say, or the truths, the core truths of life. These two things are things that the ghost cannot feed on and cannot digest. So the ghost goes away in a way. They release the grip of the autonomous power of the ghost upon us. And yeah, this realization that the natural joy when we are located in our qualities, and when we are located in the awe of the universal truths and pathway towards there, then we release and we heal the grip of the ghost. This was the realization. And it was a joy. It was a joy. We wanted it to last more, and we felt that this was a unique circumstance. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, so there is a healing nature to it. There is a liberating nature to it. And if you remind me when we do the conversation on Monday, you bring up this same experience you just had, we can go into a lot more specificity about the difference between healing experience to bypassing experience to superimposing experience. So there are important insights to go into, which I'm holding myself back from going into today because it's not the main focus of this exploration in the nature of what we're doing. So please, Daniel.
Yeah. First of all, I was with Theodora and Enrique, and we all were sitting there with big grins, big smiles on our faces. The ecology, the allowance, the space making that has preceded the being there was as if we had all known each other for years and were deep in conversation very quickly. And I feel that is part of what happens when people focus on the true qualities of humanity that they carry. They start to be that space and that ecology in which true human warmth and friendship can blossom, and in which self-realization can come to the fore. The forensics, the looking at, the no shame, no blame, no self-judgment. Because the ecology is clean and enhanced. And I walked in with the last quality, the last sentence that I wrote to myself of qualities was the love to feel the awe of life. And that seems to me to be part of the spiritual levels of quality expression. And it feels like this whole engagement is full of that potential and realization, not just as potential possibility, but actually here and now for real.
So listening to you, listening to everybody that spoke so far, Daniel, there is a mystery, there is a wonder that comes to the foreground, which is what are those qualities and natures that perhaps are permanent presences in the way of the soul that get to be expressed through each and every one of us when we are able to get close in, more in communion with our nature, true nature, that nature of the soul. And then what is still the place and function and way of the unique configuration that each person is. So there is something there in this mystery, that there are universal qualities that shine, that life get to exhibit through each and every one of us. And within that, each and every person truly represents a unique signature, a unique cosmology, which is the mystery that accompanies this inquiry. So thank you for bringing that to focus. So with that, I am ready to bring back here, please, the Portals team to be with me, Peter, Patrick, Lisa, and Kyriaki. And what we're about to embark on is, in the last part of today, is something that's mentioned earlier in chapter 2. And it describes a little bit there is, if you go through chapter 2, there is at some point earlier a download, a set of bullets that describe the meta-crisis. And right from the beginning, the preamble described that this work was emerging now inside a particular context, with the sense that, sure, it would have been important and useful to embark on a journey to discover the soul in all previous centuries, but there is something unique in this moment in time, in what's happening with this beautiful place we call Earth, and collectively for us as humanity. So what I'd like to do is to embark on a reflective inquiry to reflect from the soul. I'm just going to bring it up as I talk through it. Okay, and what I would like to do here is to create a unique combination. Because often when we talk about the meta-crisis, we talk about all that's happening out there. And on several conversations on portals, we describe various dimensions of the meta-crisis. And there is a particular reason we're describing in the preamble. And you'll see we are about to release chapter 3 later this, towards the end of June. And one of the first things chapter 3 will do is it will say, well, we introduced the 3 natures of the soul in chapter 1. We introduce, quote unquote, the problem of the ghost in chapter 2. And you'd expect in a solutioning modern Western mindset, the chapter 3 will give you the solution to the problem that emerged in chapter 2. But in fact, something else is about to happen. We are embarking on a journey, and it will describe very much the premise, the Einstein premise. I'm a bit preempting the chapter 3 because it goes there, but it's okay, which is that the problems we're dealing with, we're looking at, we cannot solve at the same level, at the same kind of thinking we were in when we created these problems. And so, rather than thinking that we can immediately solve the problem of the ghost, we are going to embark on several journeys. I've written already chapter 4 and 5 and 6 I completed yesterday, nearly completed chapter 6 yesterday. And since we are releasing those every 2 or 3 months, that will carry us for the remainder of the year, because we're going to take an August break. And we will release chapter 4 in September and probably chapter 5 later. And they are taking us on a kaleidoscopic journey to develop the cosmology with which we may be able to address many of those challenges from a different place. However, the sense is that we are in a rolling event on this planet where the escalating meta-crisis, there is a way in which we describe the meta-crisis through the epoch story that we've released and described on several conversations on Portal, through the acceleration and the intensification of indigo and violet as stages of the epoch culminating. So what has appeared here felt like it couldn't wait. And that's the beauty of us doing some of this work through these live events, because we cannot be linear. We've got to respond to what is emerging. So I'm asking that we engage in this next segment with a mindset of being in service, in function on behalf of humanity. In other words, what I'm about to bring could cause shrinkage, but I'm asking you to be in the resilient, resourceful part of your soul and your psychology, because we, that is the larger we, humanity, have the necessary capacity to meet the challenge of this time. And the invitation is that I'm about to name some of the exterior dimensions of the meta-crisis. And I will ask, what is the interior soul inquiry and what is the interior soul concern that parallels that exterior crisis? Let me model the first one, and then we'll see if we get some of your voices to participate in unraveling and discovering this. Okay, crisis number one, I deliberately decided to start there. We've been told for a while that we have reached peak energy. So we know the economic miracle of the modern world for the last 300 years was based in the discovery of the extraction of free energy out of the soil, out of the planet, out of the ground. So what this beautiful planet took millions of years to generate, we've been extracting and burning in just a couple of 100 years. And whether you believe that we have reached a peak or there is more, I mean, the evidence is that we needed to go to other sources and extract oil out of the sand in northern Canada and other places. But whether we've reached it or whether we will reach it, and we so far have only a little bit of renewable energy, we're facing energy problem because the modern economy is based on continually consuming more energy. And believe it or not, with all the promises of AI, that computing power is going to consume even more energy. So it's very easy to get gloom and catastrophizing and worried and anxious about that, and we can do that sometime and have a conversation about that. And there are people that this is their focus of work, and I appreciate very much what they do. What I wanted to do is to bring that. So the soul's concern and the soul inquiry is to ask, what are the reasons and what are the causes for the rampant energy depletion, energy fragmentation, and energy dispersion, and mental and spiritual fatigue? So rather than just thinking the energy problem is a planetary, humanity at large problem, can we recognize that the way we live, the way we operate, created exhaustion and depletion in the interior energy, which is why we spend the first 2/3 of today, earlier in this event today, in relaxing into those natural resources of energies, interior energies, and integrating them, because premise is, could we be part of the solution to the exterior meta-crisis by beginning to reconfigure ourselves on the inside? Which brings me to the environment and the global warming dimension of the meta-crisis. For some people, many people, this is the primary anxiety and concern. Well, so what is the parallel soul concern, soul inquiry? The interior soul inquiry would be, well, what causes in the human heating of the blood and the mental and emotional processes literally producing what we can describe internal global warming, rather than the natural cooling that the soul needs? So we understand that the inner temperature we cultivate, and I don't mean just the temperature we take when we are sick, but the nature of the subtle energy, the subtle field that we generate, and the quality of that, whether that tends to be hot and hotter or cooler, because the invitation is, could it be that what we are experiencing and describing as global warming is, in the first place, a reflection of how we have been heating up our own interior energy system? Okay, so I gave us two to get us in the zone of this inquiry. Let me bring the third one. There are many people who describe the meta-crisis who would point out that the nuclear threat, the proliferation of nuclear weaponry on the planet, represents the most severe threat to civilization, and in terms of man-made, human-caused catastrophe, that comes perhaps to the top of the list in terms of threats. So what would you consider to be the parallel interior soul concern, soul inquiry, alongside this dimension of the meta-crisis? I'm open to hands and suggestions. Anybody? Please, Beth.
So, in terms of nuclear threat, it would seem that explosion or high quick reaction is concern with this, and that's in the physical world terms. In the human terms, it's not so different. High reactivity, I mean, almost that you can't respond before there's reactivity. And that's, I think, more to do with these realms of emotion, these realms of mental handling, and the higher energy that's coming in maybe from the spiritual, without the regulation between all three of them and the flow that naturally works, and each person figuring out what that's like in them, that can, I won't say eliminate, I'll say give a better chance to lower or reduce this nuclear interhuman explosion.
Yeah. Well, so you gave the answer I have here, but I still want to hear from Mark. What else would you contribute to that, please, Mark? Thank you, Beth. Beautifully stated and articulated. Because what I'm highlighting on the slide is just some of the dimensions. So it's completely fine to bring additional dimensions. Please, Mark.
I think these are prescient points. I feel catharsis just knowing others are acknowledging these issues on a deep spiritual level, the sort of metaphysics underneath the soul that's causing us to lose it, to be separated. And I feel like our being can return to a state of soulfulness, and we can hold that state in repose until we enter into the thinking world. And that transition from the meditative being into the thinking world, especially in the current global culture we have now, is itself a separation event. That I feel the way that we think, not just what we think, but the way that we think, the logic, is not in the universal form. It is in a particular rigid form that makes us feel separated, unheard, like there's not enough time to resolve conflicts, and that the organization of the concepts of our mind are not in the soulful order. So when we try and narrow down the essence and the nature of one category, it spiders off into a chaotic order of contingency or randomness that causes us to feel even more separated from the truth itself. And so I feel like the wars are causing this on a massive global level, because our leaders don't have that kind of universal cognition, that universal logic. And this externality, the sensuousness, is gripping them in their differences rather than that internal essence. So I guess I would say that's really what's provoking a lot of this unbridled reactivity. Dialectic, maybe.
Yeah, beautifully stated. Thank you, Mark. So, so much more to play with what you just offered us here. I am going to go with the flow of this, and let me bring Denise, and then we'll hold with Peter and Avshalom to just bring the next dimensions. I'm beginning to race with the clock here. But stay with us, please, Denise.
Hi, I'll keep it real short. On the energy depletion, I think that's the result of corporate competition for our attention. Inferior foods, we're being overstimulated with too much information, and we're being deprived of sleep. We have poor food levels, and of course, no food for our souls. So it is a competition against each other rather than a universal support of each other. Indeed. So you both, what you offered and what Mark offered, alerts me that we are out of time for this today, but this slide will need to be overlaid with the kind of remedial interventions to each of the dimensions that is highlighted here. And that's part of the deeper inquiry into, indeed, the meta-crisis and the soul, and what are the processes that we can engender to offer remedial responses. However, let me just build and pile on just a little more for us to grapple with while we are maintaining the soul resilience, aptitude, and readiness in ourselves. So what about depleting oceanic habitats? Many of us feel tremendous sense of anxiety and concern about our love of the oceans and what they represent for this beautiful planet, and we know that they get poisoned, and species are getting eliminated in the ocean as we speak. So there is a lot that can be said about that, and there are people who are a lot more learned than me about this aspect, this dimension of the meta-crisis. My question to you is, what is the parallel interior soul inquiry that relates to that? Peter, you want to respond to that, or?
Well, no, not specifically. Okay. But, part of the aspect of the ghost is this idea of separation. So you can see immediately that one of the big separations is us from the understanding of who we are. And that happens at a very early age. And I just look at this list and I say, there is nothing in our society and culture and education and systems that supports any of this. It's all anti-soul. It's all, it's all a challenge and almost an alien environment. So, what can we do as individuals is reconnect this and to reconnect to our souls and our understanding of it, because then we will look at these other problems in a different way. We won't be able to deal with them the way we've been going on. So I just noticed that separation is a critical one.
Thank you, Peter. Well, so let me build on that and name the following. The oceanic depletion can be, in the interior human sense, be reflected on with the idea of the internal salted water, because see, we also are a majority
By majority, we are water. We are sacred. The interior human ecology is filled with sacred salted water. The question is, are these salted waters still conductive? Or are they full of everything that impedes the flow of that fine, subtle energies through the water? Because in the first problem of the energetic depletion, what partly is catalyzing that is that we have broken down the interior conductivity. And guess what is more than anything responsible for the interior conductivity? It's the work of the soul to be effective conductor of the human orchestra. So what you're describing, Peter, about the sense that we're being taken away from the natural rhythm and ways of the soul, these are some of the reasons as to why we lose the inner conductivity. So let's build on, because Mark spoke about ongoing wars. Well, ongoing wars in the world are horrible, truly horrific. And when you look at the devastation of war, there is nothing that feels more devastating to it. The sole concern, the sole question is, what are the inner wars? And some you have already spoken to. It is the separation, but what are the other reasons and what are the other inner wars that are causing all wars, and why are they ultimately even more dangerous to a person's higher possibility and destiny? Destiny in a universal sense, in the sense that we are here, a spirit being inside the human model, going through the planetary experience as a boot camp for universal life, where when we are captured by the lesser range of possibilities caused by the interior wars, we lose access to these higher possibilities, greater possibilities, more liberated possibilities. And then I added, well, this is a big one, especially when we look at youth. There's never been a generation of youth, the 12-year-olds all the way to the 25-year-olds and more, that experience the kind of cynicism and nihilistic cynicism and the breakdown of meaning. And all the mental health issues that are coming out of it. There's never been the statistics we now have about suicide preoccupation with youth. It's horrific. And again, I'm asking us to get these data points, to metabolize these data points without going into a contraction, but be based in the depth of conviction about the capacity of the soul to be resilient and to assimilate even anxiety-causing information and reach for internal and interpersonal and communal resources we will need to generate to assist the younger generations. The sole concern about this one is if the inner lives of a person don't feel connection to hope and belief in the future, I should drink something. If the inner lives of a person don't feel a connection to hope and belief in the future, because the inner lives are built to run on the conductivity of purpose and communion and confidence and flow and being with those resources. If we lose that conductivity and that connectivity and that sense of built-in intrinsic meaning, how is a person going to be optimistic and feel that life has a meaning? So the meaning crisis that has been so popularized over the last couple of years as an important conversation topic, John Vervaeke had done a lot of that work. We are proposing here that we integrate into it that the soul dimension, which is
unless we give the inner lives the purpose, the reason, the sense of connected meaning, how will we regenerate the remedial power to address that? Please, Lisa.
So with what you're saying, which is very, very powerful, Aviv, and what everybody said, it's bringing up in me that it all starts in how we think of the human life, how we think of humanity, our lives, our gift as a human being, and everything else and everyone else around us. Because if you think about war and what that then does to people, if people could just say, I have to say no, I cannot say yes to war, no matter what, because there's lives that are so precious. So for me, I take it all back down, if you will, to how we think about human life, the gift of life, the human deal, and why we're here on the planet.
Thank you, because you offer me a wonderful segue into the last dimension I'll bring up here, which is leadership void. So anywhere we look in the world, political leadership, business leadership, I get to work with a lot of business leaders, so I have the inside view of that. Religious leaders. 60 years ago, you could think that somebody was in the clear. We now know that there is leadership void everywhere, in all the central institutions of the modern world. But it's easy to blame everybody else. And what Lisa is offering to us is it begins with how we choose to view life, how we choose to view ourselves, and why is true self-leadership essential in a development and refinement journey. It's not a mistake that we published late last year an article that we call The End of the Guru Era, and we just published a few months ago The Teacher's Journey and The Golden Shadow. All that was part of the interior work we all must do about the updating of leadership, where we can all recognize that, first of all, the premise of being even alive is being given permission to become a self-authored, self-regulating, self-determining, self-directing, fully agentic human. And that in so doing and becoming, we are already part of the leadership answer to the void. So it was that context that in chapter 2 brought us to ask this question, this contemplative question. Could it be that the solutions and salvation for the meta-crisis humanity needs are nearby? They're actually already available in the 6 and the 7 and the 8 and the 9% of our and the universe's own potential waiting to be unlocked. And could it be that as we each make a fuller contact, a fuller re-embracing of our inner companion, the soul, and as we cultivate those ecologies with each other, we already become part of the solution instead of adding to the problem. So with that in mind, I'd invite us to engage in the last starter practice of today, which is, well, if you can talk to your soul, and you can, through your actions, through your intentions, through your meditations, through your abiding with the qualities that you choose to foster, if you can talk to your soul, and you can, what is the one message you may choose to offer? I'm going to go quiet. Let Paul play for us a little moment of music, and then we'll, in the little time we have, we'll maybe get one or two of you to share your soul message from you to you and to the rest of us, and possibly to humans everywhere. here is a sample of a message as Paul is playing. Please stay with me, Paul. This is a sample of a message I choose to communicate to my soul. So these are the words, and it's the intention that's carried in these words. Whatever we have gone through, I do know, deep inside, you and I are fundamentally whole. Fundamentally whole. I know you continue to accompany all the days of my life. Always nearby, always available, always supporting me at the fullest range I enable. This simple knowing fills me with self-forgiveness, with self-compassion, with gratitude, with hope, with belief that all is not lost, that the human spirit and the soul carry the remedial answers to the greatest challenges we now face.
Please, Daniel.
My message to my soul would be, you are seen and known, you are enough, you are loved and cherished, valued and upheld. Go forth, spread light, spread love, evolve.
Thank you. Please, Avshalom.
Hold for me the faith and belief, hope and vision that things can be put right.
Please, Kiriki.
Dear soul, you are precious, you are appreciated. Thank you for being ever present and for your guidance. You are an instrument of light and a cloak of consciousness, and a weaver of all with all, and a precious thread that may lead me back to the place where I arose from.
Please, George.
Yes, thank you, Aviv. I made a conscious agreement to seek harmonies, capitalize in all qualities we have managed to build as a sacred partnership. Finally, time is with us, for us and all others.
Thank you very much, George. And Beth, you'll be the last.
Be in the love and fullness of the birthing of the universal soul. I will listen as you do. I will keep trying and moving forward as you do. Let's build tomorrow together. It can be done, and we are not alone.
Thank you, Beth. And I know if time permitted, you would integrate this with movement and dance. So one of the things about communicating to the soul, the more parts of us are integrated, and this is why dance and movement is so important in this work, the more we communicate with the more parts of ourselves. So, friends, before I hand it back to Lisa to close the day, I wanted to still bring this, yes.
And I'm going to bring Paul to the spotlight as well, because I feel he companioned us today and he should be part of our closing.
Yeah. So this is offering for continuance. It shows the other slide, but that's all right. This Monday, just drop us an email or respond to the email that's coming. And we'd love to have you there to evolve the conversation. With that, I'd like to say thank you to Lisa, to Patrick, to Kyriaki, to Peter, to Paul, to every one of you, to Beth and to Eleni, the iHow team. And these are early days. We intend to journey ahead and discover where it takes us next. Please, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Aviv. This is so special. And what makes me so proud is that as we do this work, our personal development work, our work into the soul, we're always towards the end of what the world needs, what humanity needs, what God and creation needs. So it's always a twofer. We go deep inside and then we expand out into the universe. And it's really so special. So thank you all. Please join us if you can on Monday. And I can't say more than this is really, truly inspiring.
Let's bring all our voices into the room to say goodbye and good day and good evening wherever you are.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.